this case, as in others, many cars do not appear in their right place, and contradictions are numerous. Let's list a few. The flight 4U 9525 D8X, according to data provided by Flight Trader 24, appeared at a lower altitude than the regular one. But this is known. We know that commercial airplanes, in charge of the diffusion of hygroscopic and electrically conductive compounds, known as chemtrails, often fly on military corridors and thus at lower altitudes than those declared. According to reports by the competent authorities, the A320 disappeared from radars a few moments before the alleged collision with the French mountain tops. Initially, there is no mention to the interruption of the communications. In later times, however, to justify the official version of the kamikaze pilot, it is claimed that the tower has lost all contact with the crew as soon as the flight began the controlled descent, namely 9 minutes before the signal lost on the radar. These times of darkness necessarily involve the intervention of fighter interceptors that should reach the civilian air and check on site the conditions of the drivers, then act accordingly. But no manager has mentioned any Operation Scramble. Only one of the two flight recorders has been shown, and that is the responsible for the recording of dialogues on board. The flight record doesn't seem to be a recent model. It shows scratches and rust, as if it had been under weather or in a humid environment for a long time. The flight recorder is therefore not the old Flight 9525, but in all probability, it is a piece of stock. There is already an audio track that has been declared to be the record of the last 60 seconds of the flight. The audio file appears to be the result of manipulation. Some parts of those that are passed off to the sounds in the cabin are repeated several times. While at the end, it is abnormal circumstance not to hear the onboard system call the driver with a warning pull up. It is in fact the instrument set close to the ground that alerts the driver to pull himself the yoke or joystick.
Lifters, close ground. Pull them off. Lifters, close ground. Pull them off. Now I keep them off if you lose it. That's what's turning you. Okay, there you go. Left row, left.
The French prosecutor declares to the world that the tragedy has a responsible, the German co-driver Andreas Lubitz. Initially, the portrait painted of the man does not indicate a suicidal, but with each passing hours, things change and the profile of the poor scapegoat is increasingly more dodgy. The 27 now appears as a deranged. One has to wonder, how is it possible that the young man could still fly? His colleagues are quiet. Meanwhile, however, after the accident, they refuse to fly. The reasons are obviously to be sought elsewhere. What do they know, the experts, that we do not? Perhaps they are worried about the repeated and increasingly frequent episodes of smoke in the cabin. We would say so. It has been explained that the security door did not allow the commander to return to the cockpit, but we don't understand why. Despite having at least 8 minutes to decide what to do, no one has used the satellite phone to communicate with the control tower. 8 minutes of silence? Improbable. In the supposed crash, we cannot see objects larger than a few square meters. No one can see human remains, or luggage or clothes. And most importantly, we do not see the wreckage of the two turbofan that should be almost intact. What are our assumptions? There is an explanation and some unique, but we can assume some scenarios. First of all, as per established, the commercial aircraft fly at lower altitudes than those declared. We can summarize that on board the flight has occurred yet another case called in slang smoke in the cabin. The A320 in question has already been involved in the past in a similar incident. In that case, the two drivers, who had lost consciousness, succeeded in extremis to regain control of the aircraft. In the recent plane crash, we don't have to underestimate the assumption that pilots, cabin, crew, and passengers remained unconscious for minutes, and this justifies the dynamic occurred. Obviously, a truth like this would be explosive, and the market of civilian flights would suffer a frightful collapse, as well as the clandestine operation of aerosols. We think that the A320 or Germanwings was shot down well before falling on the French mountains peaks, and this would explain why the strongest part of the aircraft had not been found. A theater of the disaster would have been later recreated ad hoc. It's a superficial reconstruction, the official one contradictory and inaccurate, but more than enough to fool an increasingly stupid populace.